Hi there, welcome. For those people who already know about what I'm going to show you, please skip forward and go and check the moulds out that I'm casting. They're gone? Right, okay. This is for the people that, if you're going to dabble into casting, just a few of the items that you actually need to actually get yourself started. The first thing I'll start with, the most important, is casting powder. Just put that one there. The first one is a Herculite 2. Now this is a good all-round casting powder. It will do all of your moulds. But saying that, I do use two casting powders, and this is the Crystallite R. This is a porcelain finish plaster, which is extremely hard. I use this for the more delicate pieces like tiles, slates, little things like that. So they're both good quality casting powders. I will put a link in the description where you can actually get these from. You can actually get these off eBay, but other countries, I don't know which country you're in, you might have to find an equivalent to it. Right, that is the main thing. That's the most important. I'll stress that now, is to get a good quality casting plaster to cast in rubber silicone moulds. Plaster of Paris is no good. Don't even think about it. Or decoration filler or anything like that. You will not get good results. Right, moving along. What we have is a set of digital scales. The set of digital scales is for measuring weight-wise your casting powder. All casting powders will come to either a 2-to-1 ratio or a 3-to-1 ratio, which is 1 milliliter of water to 2 grams of casting powder. So you need a set of scales to measure that out accurately. The next thing, well, I'll move these things in because I think a lot of them are out of shot. A spoon, well, the spoon's for dishing up your powder. Nothing too technical about that. There isn't nothing too technical. You need a paintbrush, that is for mixing your plaster, and also for painting pigments or paints into your moulds. That's basic thing. A basic scraper, any shape or size. This is for cleaning off the tops of your moulds. We move along. Mixing containers. These can be yogurt pots, they can be anything you like as long as you can mix them. We also have a disposable syringe. This is a 10mm syringe. You'll find that most of the moulds you won't go over 12mm. Actually, it goes up to 12mm, this one does. They're very cheap to get hold of, and you will get an accurate mix by using something like this. Next to it, we have a piece of plastic. This is to actually put your moulds on. If I bring a mould down, the moulds are quite flexible and soft. This is just so when you cast, you can cast into your mould and you can actually move it away, put it somewhere safe to dry, because if you pick it up, as you can see, you're going to end up breaking your parts, damaging them, and things like that. Put that mould back in its place. Now, another thing that you need is a plastic container and some rinse aid. Now, the rinse aid is for soaking your moulds in before you cast in them. You will do a small amount into their water, put your mould into it and soak it. Then partially dry it off before you start casting. The rinse aid helps release, well, it breaks the water tension in the plaster and helps release the air bubbles from the face of the mould, so you do get decent parts. Now, colours. I've already done, there's 2 videos out. One on pigments, which is, I use the Vallejo pigments. And there's also one out on paints. I use the Vallejo paints. It's just that that's what I had to hand. There's 2 videos out. The choice is yours on what colours and how you do it. If you're going to do a lot of casting, I would recommend pigments. If it's going to be little bits and pieces and you don't want to buy pigments and you've got paints in your box, you can use paints quite easily and just as good as pigments. So that is your colouring. We move on now. I have a small vibrating table which I made myself. There is a video out how to actually make this particular vibrating table. Tells you all the parts that you need, how to do it, everything. If you don't want to build a vibrating table, you can actually get away with using a piece of plastic and getting a piece of foam rubber or sponge, placing it on, tapping it with your finger. That will do just as well. Failing that, you can actually use a compressor. Start your compressor up on your board and just gently lay it on top of the compressor. The vibrations will do exactly the same job as well. So there's 3 options there if you require for a vibrating table. Moving on, the final thing, and I will stress this because this has caused quite a few marital breakups, is, I'll just move the camera slightly, is a container to wash up in. You need a container to wash up in for the simple reason is when you mix the plaster with the water's only a medium to hold the plaster, and the plaster will sink and harden underwater. So if you wash your cups up, your moulds, that will go down the drain and it will block your sink up straight away. So if you get yourself a largest container that you can actually put stuff, wash stuff up and get it cleaned up. So that's it. So next up is how to cast a mould. Welcome. Right, we're going to be doing curbstones, curb edgings, whichever one you'd like to call it. They're both correct. Now, I have 2. These are both from Diorama Debris. They're both silicone moulds. One's a 6-inch, which is this one, and the other is a 5-inch. Now, we'll cast the 6-inch. We'll put the 5-inch one away. We'll put that straight into the rinse aid, and we'll mix up some plaster. Right, I'm going to go 12 mils on this because I really can't remember how many mils it was, but we'll start off with 12. So 12, that's a ratio of 2 to 1, so that is going to be 24 grams if I'm not mistaken. Measure at 24 grams. 21. 24.5. I can live with that. I will stress again to make sure your measurements, get them on as close as you can, because it does make a difference to the pouring. The manufacturers do put the quantities on the side of the pack, try and stick to them because they've done a lot of testing to make sure that it all works right. Straight into the water, leave that to do its business. We'll take the mould out as normal, just tap dry it and straight onto your vibrating table or whatever you're going to be using to do it with. Now I'm going to cast these in grey, nothing too mad about it. Now you can, if you like, you can use some dark browns and things like that just to give them a little bit of tonal variation. I don't bother, I just go straight for the black, do them in grey, and this time I shall try and show you that because last time I had my big hand in the way on the last one. So there we go. Just a very light grey, because when you put it into the sand and do your pigment weathering, they come out a lot better. I shall do it left-handed. And to be totally honest with you there, I think you can cut that down to 10 mils of water. Yeah. So it's going to be a 10 mils of water and 20 mils of casting powder, because there's quite a bit left in there. So excuse me while I do my washing up. That is that process done. Leave that to vibrate for a few minutes or a few seconds. You can normally see, if you look across the top, you can see the air bubbles coming up. To me, I can't see anything coming up, so we'll switch that off. Right, I will now pause you, and we'll come back roughly in about 4-5 minutes, just to let that top just start to harden off, and then we'll just skim the top off, and then we'll leave it to dry and turn them out. Okay, it's been a few minutes. It's just starting to go off there. Then just with your scraper, I should do this left-handed, so I'll probably make a mess of it. Just use your scraper and go across the top. Like so. Get rid of the excess. There we go. Right, this will be one that will be put up onto the side and left to dry. And we'll come back and we'll turn them out and see what we've got. Okay, the curbstones are dry enough to turn out. I shall get my little plastic container and we'll put them straight into that. No good big secret, they will just pop out. And if you can see that, they do come out really nice. There's no problems with these. And once they go into a sand pigment wash, all that little detailing will all come up really nice. Now I just pop these all into one box, as you can see, no air trapped in them. I'm quite happy with them. So there we go, we'll just turn the last of them out. No air bubbles, we'll turn the corners out. They're all nicely done as well. No problems at all. The little cheese, that's where they normally get air trapped, but that one's okay. The rest of them all nicely turned out. We'll leave them to dry in the box, and then, like I say, into a pigment sand wash and everything else. Now all I do is, I'm going to be moulding these, I just clean off all the excess, and that will go straight back into my dishwasher rinse aid. Make sure there's no bits in there. Put it into my rinse aid, and I'll start casting my next one. So that's it for the curbstones. Thank you very much for joining me, and we'll see you on the next one.